And welcome back. Well, racing obviously involves a lot of moving parts, but the man behind the checkered flag may be the most important component. Doug Clark has been starting and stopping the action as flagman at Huset Speedway for the last 30 years, though that merely scratches the surface of his experience. For more on that, we send it to Rod Pattison for this week's edition of Hot Laps with Hot Rod.
I thought we'd bring you a story of a guy that's been in racing all of his life and been one of the premier flagmen in sprint car racing now in his 30th season. Doug Clark, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks.
Absolutely.
How you doing?
Super good. All right, growing up in Sioux Falls, how does a black kid from Sioux Falls grow up to be one of the premier flagmen in this sport, which is predominantly a white sport?
That I don't really know. I know my brother, Jim, he used to work on a welding shop, and I used to go down there and sweep it up, and then he went and worked on race cars and stuff, and I kind of kept hanging around Pete's Welding and stuff and started working on race cars, and all the East Side kids, used to hang around a couple of different race shops, and there was one time that Hartford Speedway needed a flagman after Dean Wiskus from Jackson was ready to quit, and I asked Don Marquardt if I could try it, and he says, we'll give you and Larry Johns a whirl at it, and I took it serious and wanted the job bad, so I just got into it a little bit more, I guess. I don't really know about the, about black and all that stuff, but I just wanted to do the job bad.
Yep. Talk about growing up, being around race cars and race shops. One of the great stories, you and Doug Wolfgang obviously were friends as kids. Great story about you and Doug taking Darrell Dawley's car out for a little joyride. Tell us that story.
Yeah, if Darrell was here, he'd probably beat both our butts and stuff. But there was like 4 or 5 of us guys worked on race cars, and there used to be a racetrack called Sioux Speedway just down the road from Houston Speedway here. And Wolfgang was headed for Jackson, Minnesota to go race when Wolfgang wanted to take it out to Sioux Speedway, and everybody got to make a couple laps driving a couple times. One guy got in there and forgot to put his seatbelt on even. He said, boy, those things always that shaky and stuff. And then I got out there and I spun it out a couple of times, and I tried doing the 360 deal and tried keeping it going. The second time I didn't keep it going. And then Wolfgang got in there and he showed us how to do it, and he got in there and he made probably about 5 or 6 laps. And there was one time he hit there was an oxygen settling bottle sitting by the wall. He clipped that with the right rear. And then the next time he come around, then he caught the front axle, bent the front axle up, and we had to hustle back to the shop and get it straightened up and still make it over to Jackson, Minnesota in time to race. And Darrell never did hear about it. He heard about it afterwards, but we got it all to go back together and stuff. So,
yeah. What was it like to grow up with Doug Wolfgang?
It was fun. When we was kids, it seemed like he had a Stingray bicycle, and we had wagons, and we used to race all those in a field that's called Whittier Field. Now we used to race around the track field there on bicycles, and we had a little wagon cart place where we raced wagons, and had Indiana Hill. We used to race push carts down there and stuff like that. So we always ran around together and did goofy stuff.
You've been doing this now in your 30th season. Obviously, you are the closest guy to the action other than being a driver. Huset's, Knoxville, and a lot of dirt tracks. How many close calls have you had, and have you been injured in the flag stand?
My worst injury was a piece of pipe came up and hit me in the finger. I ended up getting 4 stitches in my finger. My son Justin, he helps me down in Knoxville. He's been hit by a side panel off a wing. My next biggest thing is had a couple cars bounce off the front of the flag stand down there. And you're always getting hit by dirt and rocks and different stuff like that. That's I haven't, the cars come up, I'm, kind of paying attention, but the flag stand down there, I'm pretty secure in there, and I feel safe in there. So usually if a car bounces off, and I'm kind of considered still in good conditions and still be able to watch stuff.
We've just had Father's Day. How gratifying is it to have your son Justin being in the flag stand with you now 11 years at Knoxville?
I don't really look at it that way. I just, he's down there to do a job. I'm there doing a job. It's nice to, have him down there working with me. It's just like today we was riding back from Knoxville, and he slept most of the way. So it's, and he grabbed me a beer and he said, "Here, happy Father's Day." And I had already bought the beer, so I don't understand how it's a present, So that's my son. He's a pretty good kid, and it's fun to work with him. A lot of the girls like him and things like that and stuff. And I hate to say it, he is pretty good looking. He didn't get the looks from me, though. He got them from my ex-wife. So.
Obviously, you're the closest person to the action. How difficult is it to watch the race and not watch the race, if you know what I mean?
You just have to get focused. Basically, what a flagman's doing is he's watching the first 3 or 4 cars in the race, and he has to know where the last car is. Because we're down there on the flag stand, we're counting the laps ourselves. A lot of racetrack people, they'll have the scorekeepers holler out white flag. Well, whenever something comes over the radio, it just scares me, and I jump, and Justin's jumping for the yellow lights or whatever. So we're down there counting the laps, even if it's a 100-lap race or a 200-lap race, we count all the laps. And you just get focused in on your job, and you don't, like you say, you're watching the race, but you're not watching the race. You know who the leader is, and you know how many laps are going, and you just get focused that way, and you don't really get to see a race. I know when I first started, people would come up to me and ask me who won the race, and I'd say, I don't even remember, And even today, that happens, and most of the time I'll tell them the car number, and I have a hard time remembering the name of the people and stuff like that. So.
Last but not least, obviously in your 30th season, you've had a chance to flag some of the great races. A lot of Knoxville Nationals, a lot of World of Outlaw events, those types of things. Can you pick out maybe one or two that was maybe a highlight of your career and maybe something that hasn't happened to you yet that you'd like to see happen in your career?
I haven't been to India. I'd like to have that happen. I'd like to flag there. I tried getting into the NASCAR Truck Series. I heard the flagman was going to quit there, and I had guys make me resumes up and sent those down to North Carolina, down to Charlotte. And I think my biggest highlight, I'd hate to say it, but what made me popular or whatever like that, was when Sammy Swindell and Doug Wolfgang were on the front row, and it was during the Knoxville Nationals back then. A penalty, if you jumped the start, you'd have to go to the back of the pack. And Sammy Swindell and Doug Wolfgang, Sammy Swindell took off over by the scoreboard, and he took off, and I ended up having to put him to the tail end of the stuff. And another one was Mark Kinzer. He jumped the start, and I penalized him, and then after that race was over, I was sitting down in the corner of the racetrack talking with a bunch of the push truck guys and stuff like that down in Knoxville, and my son Justin come over, and I don't remember how old he was then, he was a little guy, and he said, "Dad, what's the wrong side of your car?" And I says, "I don't know, nothing." And I walked around the side of the car, and here somebody threw brake fluid on it and stripped it down to the bare metal. So those are probably the two biggest highlights that I remember.
Wow. Well, you're one of the best in the business, Doug. We appreciate the time and your efforts here during this, not only this season, but all of your seasons and your great career. Thanks for visiting with us today.
Oh, yeah, it's fun. I like talking and stuff like that. So I'm usually a pretty quiet guy, but thanks for having me on.
All right. Our Hot Laps with Hot Rod segment this week, flagman Doug Clark.
All right, thanks, Rod. Clark, a 2012 Huset's Hall of Fame inductee, has seen a lot of great finishes in his days on the flag stand, but very few have been as close as this one. We'll hear from the winner when we come back.